We want to thank everybody for taking the time to participate. Those of you who have come out tonight, we had some people send in questions ahead of time. We want to especially say thank you to some elected officials who have come out to support this event. So we have a couple of our local county officials, and we also have a judge from Franklin County who is visiting us, Terry Jameson. So if anybody wants to grab any of those people afterwards and have a chat with them, it's a good opportunity to talk to some of your local elected officials. As for our event tonight, we hope that this provides you with information for the upcoming election. The candidates in the Democratic primary for Athens County Treasurer are Beth Clodfelter and Taylor Sappington. We appreciate both of them for making the time to participate tonight. Please make sure that you have a voting plan for this March's primary election. If you are not registered to vote, or you need to update because you moved or you changed your name, today is the deadline. So leave here, turn this off, go register to vote. The Board of Elections office is open till 9 p.m. You can always watch this later on video. Early voting starts tomorrow at the Board of Elections office. If you want to have an absentee ballot, you have to submit the official absentee ballot request form. And then Election Day is March 19th. In addition to these candidate events, we publish a voter guide where candidates provide written answers to questions. That is available now online at vote411.org. You go in there, put in your address, it'll bring up all the races and issues that are on your ballot. And we have a paper form that is being delivered to the local county libraries this week. Lastly, I just want to say that the League of Women Voters is dedicated to expanding public awareness about government and encouraging active participation. We do not support or oppose political parties or candidates. Membership in the League is open to anyone who is at least 16 years old. So if you are interested in joining us, you can find out more information on our website, athensleagueofwomenvoters.org. And if you appreciate the work that we do in the community, consider going online and making a donation to support those efforts. So thank you. And with that, I will turn the event over to tonight's moderator, John Howell.
Thanks, Adrian. Okay, we're on. Okay. Yeah, I always find the acoustics in this room a little difficult. So if you can't hear at some point, make sure to wave your hands so whoever has the microphone will know that they need to speak up. So at any rate, welcome, of course, to tonight's forum. And I'll begin by explaining the forum procedures, which each candidate has agreed to in advance. So we'll start with an opening statement from each candidate. Then we'll have questions from each of the media representatives present, and I don't know if there are any. Okay, well, that'll take care of that item. Then we'll go to questions submitted by the public, and finally, each of the candidates will have a closing statement. So the candidates will have 2 minutes for the opening statements and 2 minutes for the closing statements. And they will have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question, okay? And there will be no rebuttals. So the order for speaking will rotate, and I will indicate who speaks first. The candidates can see our timekeeper here, who will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and 15 seconds remaining and no seconds remaining. If a candidate continues to speak, I will say thank you and move on to the next speaker. Candidates are invited to share their qualifications and experience and to talk about their plans and proposals. Candidates are asked to focus on topics relevant to the stated question and avoid personal attacks and raising issues unrelated to the office being sought. Should they go outside these guidelines, I may stop them to remind them of the guidelines. Audience members, you too have a responsibility. Please turn off your cell phones and remain quiet throughout the forum. No clapping, cheering, or calling out. With the exception that after their closing statements, you may clap for both candidates if you wish. We received questions by email prior to tonight's forum, and we're also taking questions from you, our in-person audience. and you're encouraged to submit questions for the candidates on the paper provided on the seats. Questions must be answerable by both candidates and must apply to issues or qualifications for the particular office they're seeking. Raise your hand if you'd like another paper, if you have another question you'd like to submit, or to have your question collected. Please make sure your questions are written legibly. That's very helpful. All questions are then reviewed by the league panel, the two people here. The panel removes any questions that cannot be answered by both candidates and questions that are not related to the office of treasurer or are duplicates of other questions. So we'll use as many questions as time allows, striving to cover a variety of topics. We may not, of course, have time to cover all the questions submitted. So now we will begin with the opening statements, and Beth Clodfelter will begin.
Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening. My name is Beth Clodfelter, and I'd like to begin by thanking the League of Women Voters for hosting this event. I have served as the moderator for several candidate forums for other races, and I know how much work this is. So thank you, John, for being the moderator, and everyone else. I'd also like to thank each of you for coming out this evening. I know everybody has a busy life, and it's just really great that you take time out of your schedules to come learn about the people that you're considering voting for. I think that events like this are just really good for grassroots democracy, and I just thank every one of you who came out tonight. As I said, my name is Beth Clodfelter. A little bit about me. For many years, I successfully managed a budget of, like 17 different budgets that totaled about $1.3 million at Ohio University, back when that was a bigger number than it is now. I used to be a representative for United States Senator Sherrod Brown and represented him in 25 counties of Appalachian, Ohio, which allowed me to really get to know our region and meet a variety of community leaders in each one of those 25 counties. But it also took me away from Athens more than I wanted, and I had friends ask me if I had moved away because I was never home. I was always on the road. And so that was the honor of my life to work for Senator Brown, but that job made me realize that Athens County is where I want to contribute. It's the people of Athens County I want to serve. I'm in my second term on Athens City Council, and for many years I've played kind of a behind-the-scenes role on handling the finances of the Pawpaw Festival in a position that requires a great deal of trust, because the people that run the Pawpaw Festival know that I am honest and ethical. Thank you again for coming out tonight.
Beth, we'll hear from Taylor.
Well, good evening, everybody. My name is Taylor Sappington, and I want to also thank you for coming out. The turnout looks good. I see a lot of folks I know and some new faces too. Thank you to the League for putting this on. I've participated in forums for Nelsonville City Council as well as my auditor's race, and we all know the value of these forums to our democracy and to our county and to our community. I want to say a couple of things. I want to talk about the experience that I have for this job, and that's really what I'd like to start with. When I started in Nelsonville City Council in 2015, the first ordinance that I co-sponsored and personally wrote was what we called the Balanced Budget Ordinance. The city was in dire financial straits, and I felt very strongly that there wouldn't be much to govern on City Council if there was no money to govern with. Unfortunately, for a while, I was the only one who felt that way. And so I finally decided after many talks to just put that ordinance forward for a vote. And I was really impressed, and it was impressed upon me, the power of sunshine on government finances in that moment, because once that ordinance hit the floor, it passed 5-2. And that was my first accomplishment on City Council. I spent a full term as a council person. I also was one of the introducing members of the Land Bank ordinance, resolution supporting the land bank. Nelsonville was one of the first entities in the county to do so. And since then, I've served as city auditor. I'm in my 5th year. I'm in my 2nd term. We've got a ton of accomplishments that I'm going to be really excited to talk about with you today. But with my timekeeper running down, she's keeping us on track. I just want to say thank you. I'm excited to participate. Thank you for running, Beth. And let's let's start the questions.
Okay. Fine. So, thank you. So now we will start the questions, and you'll start, Taylor, and we'll go in that sequence. So there's a question that was, I think, submitted over the internet. Can each candidate speak to why they are running for this position, given that they were just elected to another, and how that will impact the positions that they are leaving?
So that's a good question. I was reelected unanimously because I didn't have an opponent in 2023, and frankly, I'm running for this seat because I believe I have the most experience. I have 5 years in government finance, directly, day to day, full time, working with government finances, the budget, the payroll, the compliance, the pension reporting, and a number of other items, including keeping other officials on track financially, but also ethically. I'm running because I have the education. I have my master's in public administration from Ohio University right here, one of the most valuable educational experiences of my life. I can't speak enough about the Voinovich School at Ohio University. And I believe that combined, my time in the auditor's office and my education have really been a consistent building of both my resume and my experience to where I could do this job effectively. And I could do this job collaboratively and efficiently. And I believe those are all important things for the treasurer's position. Many of our accomplishments in the office would back that up. And frankly, a simple Google search will show you some of the things we've accomplished, including theft bust, historic surpluses, as well as historic interest off those surpluses, which is helping fund our operation now. So that's why I'm running. I want to do these things for Athens County. There always has to be a decision, right? We're both running from offices we're in, and obviously neither of us are running to do damage or to leave any kind of void in those offices. And so frankly, those are the reasons I am running, and should the voters give me the chance, I will do everything I can to make an effective and safe and good transition for the voters of Nelsonville as well, who I'll continue to serve as county treasurer.
Well, I think this is a really good question to start off with, so thank you to whoever asked it. We both were reelected, yes. I was reelected to Athens City Council, where I love serving, and we've had really tough meetings the last 3 weeks with lots of protesters. But we got it resolved last night. And in terms of how I would handle leaving City Council, it's something I gave a lot of thought to before I even declared that I wanted to run for Athens County Treasurer. Because being on City Council means a lot to me, and I think the work of City Council is very important for the city of Athens. But I went back to my experience working for United States Senator Sherrod Brown, and how when I was traveling around to those 25 counties, it was the county officials I was talking to. The mayors, but it was the county officials, and that just made me a lot more interested in serving at a county position. Also, twice in the past, I have worked briefly in the Athens County Treasurer's office when they needed extra help. And so I know the staff members, the protocol, the procedures, and I knew years ago when I did that was an office I really liked and would like to be part of. At the time, it never occurred to me that I would ever dream to become the treasurer, but here we are. So in terms of City Council, as I am happy to tell anyone who asks me, because the Athens County Treasurer's position is the last position in the county to start, this position would not start until September of 2025, meaning that is 10 months after November. So I would be able to give council 10 months notice, not 2 weeks, 10 months. They all already know I'm running. And I think it would be really good because the Athens County Democratic Party could appoint someone to finish my seat, and that person could have a bit of an advantage in the November election if he or she is already running in 2025. So I think it will work out for City Council and the party.
1.5. Okay. Okay, we'll go on to the next question, and we'll have Beth start this one. Okay. So there are a couple of questions that are in the same handwriting, and I'm going to give you them at the same time because they're related. The first one is, what, if any, changes would you make to how the Treasurer's Office disperses funds? And the second question is, what, if any, changes would you make to how the county invests its funds?
Good questions also. In terms of how the county disperses funds, I think that's something I will need to give more thought to learn the exact particulars of that. But I know that we disperse it to the county commissioners, county engineers. A lot of it goes to the schools, all the county offices, the Board of Elections, emergency medical services. It's the Athens County Treasurer's Office that collects the treasurers, that keeps the heartbeat of the county beating, the heart of the county beating. And so that part, it's just really critical to not only collect the taxes, but ensure that they're being dispersed appropriately to the places they need to go. And that's really critical to all the work of the rest of the county. But in terms of the investments, yes, I am really excited to be managing, to get to manage, if I'm elected, the $30 million Athens County investment portfolio. And I've been doing a lot of homework about that. As you may know, Athens County invests in safe financial instruments, and I've been looking those over. But we also try to maximize the return on investment, to create as much funding for the county as possible. And that's something I'm really looking forward to getting involved in. Thank you.
So this is a great question, and one of the things that we have really worked hardest on in Nelsonville, myself and the treasurer, is how the city invests its money. As government entities, there are in many ways we are limited under state statute and what we can invest in as far as financial instruments. The good thing is that means that our tax money is not in risky stocks or other financial instruments that can really extremely vary, and downtimes could be extremely damaging. So in what we have done in this environment is to be competitive with who we are seeking bids from in Nelsonville. We seek from all over the county, but we really do local. We don't work with big national corporations. We don't want our money sitting in big state companies. We want them to be somewhere near and somewhere in the community. That would be the same approach I would take at the Treasurer's Office. I would want and I would think all taxpayers would want our money invested right here and in safe financial instruments. One of the nice things about this period of time we're in, which may not be the same in 2025, is we're in a rising rate environment. So what we should be really trying to achieve right now, frankly, is long-term investments, because these are rates that we haven't seen in years and we may not see for years if you're listening to the Fed. And so a rising interest rate environment is very good to local governments, because that means we can lock in good rates on our money. And that would be one of the things I'd focus on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So this time, Taylor, you'll go first. Okay. And this is sort of an extension of the same question of the responsibilities of the office, because this is the other thing that Treasurer's Office does. It collects taxes. So what, if any, changes would you make to tax collection within the county?
So this is also a great question. The Treasurer's Office, in many ways, is also limited in some of their collection capacities. And I'm sure if we had free reign under state statute to collect in any way possible, there would be some really funky ideas, both good and bad, we'd read about in the news. So there is a limited roadway and a limited lane we can be in. What I could tell you is that what I've done in Nelsonville is add the personal touch. Unfortunately, some of my predecessors in the auditor's position weren't there every day. In fact, weren't there most days. I'd like to be there every day, and I have been as auditor, but I'd like to be there as treasurer every single day as well. And what I want to do is make those phone calls, mail the folks myself, make those phone calls myself, and say, the county treasurer is reaching out to you. This is one of the things I like that I see in there right now, and I'd really like to continue that. One of the things I've learned in both my experience and education is transition in institutions is one of the most important moments in an institution's history, frankly. And it's when a lot of things can get left behind. And I'm really dedicated to making sure we don't leave those things behind in transition. I hear the nightmares around Ohio all of the time, and I don't want that to be the case. I want to make sure we're continuing to reach out, we're giving people the personal touch, and frankly, we allow them some dignity when they don't have the cash at that moment to pay. There are lots of options, but maybe they just don't know, and I want to make sure that they know of those options. Thank you.
This is a really good question. As someone who is a homeowner and who has paid property taxes myself, I've really been thinking about ways to kind of modernize the way that we collect the taxes in certain ways. Of course, according to state statute, but I think there is some room there to make things easier. One of the things I would like to do for people who are already paying online and are comfortable doing that is to try to find, if I'm elected treasurer, to look into a government app that would be rock solid, ironclad safe, that would allow people to pay their property taxes on their phones. Because so many young people in particular live on their phones, and it just might mean that more people would pay their property taxes on time with the young homeowners. I would also like to make things more convenient for the people who prefer to write a check. When I worked in the treasurer's office, I saw that there are at least many hundreds, maybe thousands of people who come to the treasurer's office and hand deliver their checks. And some of them I was there when some of them said, "Oh, I tried to bring it last week, but you closed right before I got here." And sometimes that led to penalties for people. So I think one solution that could make things much easier for the people that hand deliver their letters would be to set up a drop box, much like the Board of Elections has for ballots and the city building has for water bills. I think the county treasurer's office should have one as well.
Okay, so for the next one, you'll go first, Beth. So this is sort of an extension of this same consideration about taxes. What can the treasurer do to assist taxpayers who are having trouble paying their taxes? And another one that's related to that, what programs would you advocate to help keep taxpayers from falling behind? Another
really important question. One of my goals, if I get elected as Athens County Treasurer, is to assure that that the office remains respectful and compassionate with people who have trouble paying. That's a common thing in our county, and we have to realize that not everybody can just write a big check twice a year easily. One of the things that the treasurer's office does that is really helpful is that it allows people who get behind on their taxes to set up a delinquent payment plan. The office helps them do that. I was there as they were helping people with that. And it allows people to pay monthly. And as long as any amount that they set, they can pay monthly. The payment can last no longer than 5 years, but most people get it paid off much faster. And the only kind of stipulation is that while you're doing it, you have to keep up with the incoming taxes as well. You can't get further behind. So that's a really good option. But another thing that I think would be really helpful for more people, and I think I would promote if I were elected treasurer, is the idea of using an escrow program, which a lot of people can do through their mortgage companies, but not everybody can do through their mortgage companies. But the Athens County Treasurer's Office allows people to set up an escrow directly with the Treasurer's Office so that they can pay their property taxes monthly rather than in just 2 big installments a year, which I think is harder for low and moderate income people to do. And so I think I would just like to at least offer that option.
So this is a very good question. It's a question that impacts many people. As somebody who grew up in struggle and in circumstances where there wasn't a lot of money to go around, I understand that too well. My mother, my parents are here who also understand it, and so I actually think the councilwoman's first point was. I know we're not supposed to. It's not a rebuttal. I'm agreeing. The councilwoman's first point was so on point, I should say. is treating people well. And I mentioned it in my answer before. It's treating folks with dignity who, frankly, may not be getting that in a lot of corners in their life. I saw it firsthand. I know when somebody's is struggling, it feels like every angle you turn to, every person you turn to, every phone number you call, that person does not have an answer for you. And frankly, they don't have time for you either. And it can feel like everybody has turned against you and you have a lot of cold shoulders. And frankly, I want to make sure, if I'm fortunate enough to be county treasurer, I want to make sure that, everyone falls into hard times. They have somebody pass away, they lose a job, they have low income, or their expenses go up. I want to make sure that the treasurer's office is never that way. This isn't a complaint about the current office, but under my term, I'm going to make sure the training and the experiences for all of us in there prepare us to treat folks with dignity and to treat them with respect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Taylor, you'll start on the next one. And this is related to, the question is, how do you feel about the county's use of companies like taxees to help collect delinquent taxes? Would you continue this practice?
So this is a great question as well. There's pretty good questions tonight. I'm both impressed and thankful. So the county's use of taxees, essentially what this is a financial instrument on folks' taxes on their property, where essentially a lien can be put on your property if you fall behind on your taxes, and then a giant corporation, taxees, buys the lien and then can hold that over the taxpayer. The county, of course, gets the money up front immediately, and it funds our services right away. And I see some elected county officials in the room, so nobody wants to promise any kind of solution that's going to remove funding from those vital operations. But to be honest, we should be really thoughtful about these things, because the first issue brought to me when I got in this race was a prominent elected official in Athens County who said, what I want to make sure we're using in our policies and in our approach to this is the taxpayer getting their best service? Are we actually doing a good thing here? And do they feel like they've been done a service? I don't have a proposal, and I wouldn't promise. I think it'd be irresponsible to promise here today to totally remove and change an important revenue source for the county. But what I can promise is that I'm going to approach that policy with some important background and thoughtfulness, because we want to make sure our homeowners and our people are treated with respect and not shuffled through a major corporation simply because they fell behind.
I agree with Taylor that this is another really good question. So I think this is a pretty complicated issue in Athens County, and I would have to give a lot of thought to it if I get elected treasurer. Having the tax liens get sold has generated a lot of revenue for our county and for parts of our county that really need it. 45 to 55% of property taxes go to the schools, 35% goes to the county, and then the villages and the cities and the township trustees and the Tri-County Vocational School share a smaller percentage. But, all those things are really important. So it is important to collect the money, but one of the things I'm not sure about is the fact that already with the sale of tax liens, most of the high value properties have already been sold. And the pool is dwindling and getting less profitable. And so I have a great deal of respect for the current treasurer and the way the treasurer's office is being run. I think it's one of the best in the state. But that question about taxes and selling tax liens is one I would have to give a lot of thought to if elected treasurer.
Thanks, Beth. So we'll start with you on this next question. And this next question gets back to another function of the treasurer's office, namely investing the county's funds. So this is a simple fact question, actually, but you may want to comment further on it. What investments make up the bulk of the county's portfolio?
Thank you for this question as well. So, as you may know, treasurers in Ohio are mandated by state law to only invest county resources in absolutely safe financial instruments that cannot lose money by definition. So the bulk of the county's $30 million investment portfolio is in federal agency bonds. Bonds from federal agencies like the Farm Credit Bureau, which gives loans to farmers, like the Department of Agriculture, like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, which help homeowners get, or which help people get home loans to buy houses. And it's those safe, absolutely safe financial instruments that cannot lose money that then the treasurer tries to maximize the return on investment from. And it's, it's not like super exciting, risky investments or anything because they're all completely safe. But it might be the difference in looking at something that currently is offering 5.25% rather than 4.75 and putting some of the county's resources in that while always making sure to manage the budget very responsibly so that the Athens County has all the money it needs to meet its responsibilities.
So the familiar theme you'll probably hear from both of us is great question, because I think that's a good question. So the investments have to be somewhere safe, and frankly, in my time as auditor in Nelsonville, I worked very hard to focus on where we are putting our money and working with the treasurer, who in Nelsonville, if for any folks who might not be aware, is an extremely part-time position, just a couple times a month, a few hours. And the auditor is extremely full-time and handles almost all of the work, and that's just how the charter sets it up, frankly. So when I talk about investments, yes, even the auditor is hands-on. And so I've worked with the treasurer over the last 5 years to not just grow the city's reserves, which are so important, but to invest them in a way that accomplishes two things. And this is exactly what I would want to focus on as treasurer. The first is are we getting the best rate, and is it local? I think it's so important to make sure that we are investing in our community and that there are folks that we can talk to, that we can be on a first name basis, because that's our money, frankly. But the second thing is, or the first thing I mentioned was the growth in revenue. On my first day in office, we had $1.6 million in reserves. And as of today, it's over $7 million in reserves, often beating most of the entities around here, both local and higher up in reserves. And frankly, we did that through hard work, but also by doing the job full time. These are the kind of things I want to focus on as treasurer.
Thank you. Okay, Taylor, so you'll take the lead on this next one, and we're going to change topics here. We're going to talk about the land bank, and there are several questions here about the land bank. And I'll start with this one. Do you think the land bank has been a good thing for the county, and can you explain why?
Absolutely. My answer is absolutely yes. I do know there was some debate and discussion early in the land bank's time. Nelsonville was one of the first, in fact, if my memory serves, the first non-county entity to pass a resolution in support of the land bank. I co-sponsored that legislation with Ed Mash, who has unfortunately since then passed away. We believe in the land bank in Nelsonville because we have been the victims of deindustrialization, of the opioid crisis, of officials higher than us forgetting about Nelsonville forever, and we have lost our minds, M-I-N-E-S, we've lost our minds, and I better enunciate. So many things have happened to make Nelsonville a harder place to do business over the last 3 generations and to raise your family. And what's happened, but our housing has taken an extreme hit. People can't afford to fix the houses if they're in it, and a lot of the housing just isn't full. We saw that in the most recent census, a census effort that I led in the recount effort, beating the feds, frankly, and proving the city was still a census, but we did lose population. The land bank has been so important in helping us take these abandoned properties and make an end use for them. And I want to make sure, as I said earlier, I've learned in my experience, transition is the most vulnerable time for an institution. And we've got a transition coming up in the treasurer's office. I want to make sure the land bank doesn't suffer for a single day and that it's grown. It'll be the top issue for me. I'm out of time, but I want to talk about the land bank a lot more.
Well, like the Nelsonville auditor, I also absolutely agree that the land bank in Athens County is a great thing. I think that the officials of Athens County have managed the land bank to make it one of the most successful county land banks in the whole Southeast Ohio region. And it is always really heartening to me when I am talking to somebody who has had a land bank property get, taken down and something better put in its place down the street or next door, because neighbors love the land bank. And to me, that's one of the strongest recommendations for it. The people who are most closely affected by having blight taken away and by having something better be put back in its place, to me, that just says it truly has value, and it's really good for the communities in which those changes are happening. So one of the main things the land bank does, besides take away the blight, is get those properties back on the tax rolls so that they can be contributing to the schools and the county and the villages and the township trustees. But some of my favorite examples of what the land bank has done have been where they haven't really put it back on the tax rolls. I don't know if you've been in Gloucester recently, but on High Street, there's this diagonally shaped park where the Wonder Bar used to stand. And instead of building a new structure there, they said, let's make a park. And they have benches and a stage, and lots of people in Gloucester eat their lunch there. And I think that sometimes doing something like that that's good for the whole community would be a wise move by the land bank.
So, Beth, you'll take the next one, which is a follow-on question related to this. So, Taylor, you'll get an opportunity to finish your sentence. So this one is, how do you see specifically the role of the treasurer in the land bank? And would you make any changes with respect to that?
These are really good questions tonight. So the Athens County Treasurer plays a really key role on the 5-person board of directors of the Athens County Land Bank. And that board, by the way, based on Ohio law, is composed of people from 5 different positions: the treasurer, 2 county commissioners, the mayor of the largest community in the county, Steve Patterson, and a township trustee. And that is currently the township trustee from New Marshfield. By the way, those positions have always been held by men since Athens County first started working with the land bank in 2018, and I hope to change that. But the treasurer plays a really important role in the land bank with the financing of the projects, with some of the real estate transactions. The treasurer is always talking to people who are interested in buying or selling properties. The treasurer is talking to families who may be on the verge of losing their property because it meets the criteria of being an abandoned property that's very tax delinquent and that nobody wants to pay for. So the treasurer first talks to the families to make sure nobody wants to pay the tax bill and keep it. But if it does meet all the criteria for a land bank property, then the treasurer helps with the real estate deals and just tries to help maximize that property in the best way for the county tax rolls and sometimes, as in Gloucester, for the community where it's located.
I just want to make sure I answer the question. The question was, how would we like to improve, or what change? I want to make sure I answer appropriately.
It was specifically the treasurer's role with regard to the land.
Okay, good question. So I want to make sure I continue at some point my love for the land bank, because one of the most important things I think it does is not actually bring the properties back onto the tax roll, which is important. One of the most important things I have seen it do, and I've seen the potential for it to do so much more, is to bring hope to blocks. We actually have a term for this in Nelsonville. It's called a block of despair. We have a few of them, unfortunately, in Athens County, but in Nelsonville too. What I've seen the land bank's possibility is to take a problem with absolutely no solution. An abandoned house, somebody passed away, their family never came for it, and nobody wants to take responsibility for it. The land bank steps in and says, there's a solution to this problem. And the solution is to give it use and to give our communities use again. And to me, that's so well distilled down into the word hope. And that's what the land bank gives for me. Specifically, the question of what I'd like to see improved, I want to see improved collaboration with our communities. As county treasurer, I would never presume, and my boyfriend will make sure to keep me modest if I start presuming that I have all the answers. Because frankly, the treasurer doesn't have all the answers. what I want to make sure is that we work with our communities like Nelsonville, Gloucester, Chansey, Albany, and say, what do you need here? We have a problem, we have a blight, we have an empty space or block. What can I do, and what would make it better for you? Collaboration.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm going to throw in this next question. I don't know whether you want to take your full time to answer it, but this is a League of Women Voters sponsored event, and there's a question here that may or may not be appropriate for to lay on you, but I'm going to pose it anyway since it was submitted. The land bank has been around for several years. Why are there no women on the land bank board?
I don't know if I can answer the question as to why at the moment, other than the statutory requirements for who's in those seats. But I'd love to see some more diversity in there. I'd love to be an openly gay representative of the board, and I'd love to see women on the board as well. I think I'll keep my answer short. I can't explain the full history of why we got to where we're at, but I would love to see some of those changes too.
Well, I kind of addressed this before, but yes, the membership of the board of directors of the land bank is determined by people's positions. Two of those people are in the room this evening, current treasurer Rick Wasserman and county commissioner Lenny Eliason. Also, County Commissioner Chris Schmiel is on that, and as I said, the township trustee from New Marshfield, Greg, whose last name I cannot come up with right now. Greg Adams. He's a very nice man. One thing that I'm excited about with what I've learned from my study of Ohio law as it relates to the treasurer's position is that the statute that covers land banks says that you can expand the board from these 5 position-specific members to 9 members. And I find that very intriguing because I think it might just, I would have to study it if I got elected treasurer, but I think that it could provide the possibility to bring in some different voices in the county and to bring in diversity, to bring in women, to bring in LGBTQ folks, to bring in people of color, to bring in people who had good ideas and who were really relevant to what the land bank does.
Okay, let's see. Where do we want to go from here? Interesting question. What would you say to staff regarding their ability to keep their jobs in a new administration?
It's an important question, right? Let's try to figure out what somebody's going to do. Well, I actually know the staff of the treasurer's office. As I said, I've worked with them before. And I think that Rachel and Lauren and the others are very hardworking, they're smart, and they provide consistently excellent customer service. I've never heard anybody I know say they went to the treasurer's office and got anything but excellent service. And that's kind of amazing for a county office. But they do it consistently. If I were elected treasurer, I would absolutely keep those jobs. Those women are great. They work hard. They have experience in that office. They are really good with the people, with their customers, if you will. And I'm excited to work with them again and to be teammates. So if I am elected treasurer, everyone in the treasurer's office will keep their jobs.
So this is an interesting question. As treasurer, should I be so fortunate to get the position, there would be no expectation of change in the staffing. We do have a commissioner in the room, and the commissioners do set the budget. So maybe the question for availability of staff should be posed to some of the commissioners. But the staff, I have no plans to change staff. One of my favorite things, I actually got to tell the person who inspired me on this just a couple weeks ago, and I was so glad to be able to tell him. One of my favorite things as city auditor has been seeing the growth of the staff there. What I didn't know, I knew there was a lot of work to be done there. What I didn't know was the depth of discontent and cynicism that had built in that office due to mismanagement. And frankly, that impacts on the staff. They were stressed. They didn't believe in what I was coming to tell them, and they didn't believe the job was going to get any better. And frankly, after we cleared out the corruption, And after we started trainings and we started empowering each other and we started talking about, well, what do you think the auditor's office should do? And that's me asking the staff. I had one of them who worked there for 30 years. He said nobody had ever asked him that. I mean, how does nobody ask somebody in 30 years, what do you think we should do next? As treasurer, I would want to do those same things. I would want to empower the staff to help lead and manage and also to grow within themselves. And then finally, the final product, which is what inspired me as auditor, is to believe in the mission. That's so important.
Thank you. Here's another interesting question. I would like to hear each candidate's commitment to this job, should they be elected. The position of county treasurer is not a state level position, and it is not high profile. It is one in which, if the position is held by a competent public servant, that benefits from commitment and continuity. Is this a stepping stone? Another race to run while waiting for something better? Bigger? You're first, Taylor.
So this is a great question, and it's a good question. I'll shoulder some of the weight here for both the councilwoman and myself. We both are running with positions we already have, and we both only just had our elections in November. And I'm okay shouldering that weight. The reason I bring that up is to say I will be fully committed, full-time, to the treasurer's position for the entire term. And one of the reasons I want to say that is my training and my education and my experience. Use the word consistency. In my resume, you will find consistency from the beginning. You will see that I'm trained in City Hall, that I served as chair of the finance committee for years, that I worked on the budget for 4 years as a city council person, that I through collaboration and sheer force of will helped turn us around from fiscal watch to having more reserves than most local entities, including entities much bigger than us in Nelsonville. My education is in public administration and government with a focus on empowering the staff. And frankly, I feel that both my experiences, my resume, and my education consistently show a focus on government finance, improving it, and empowering the staff and the taxpayers for a better community. I think that's why I'd be a good treasurer. It's why I'm running for treasurer. And should I be fortunate enough, I'll say that a few times tonight, should I be lucky enough to be your treasurer, I think those are the things that will make me, and the office, more importantly than myself, the office, a great treasurer's office.
The good questions keep coming. I think this is a really important question for this race. I will definitely stay here in Athens County. I will not be moving on to a bigger position in Columbus. In terms of consistency, I'm really serious about being the Athens County Treasurer. It's something I've thought about off and on for a few years, ever since I worked in the office. I really liked that office and the people in it and the way they treat people and how effective they are day in and day out. It's a really well-run office. And so I've given this a great deal of thought and concluded the Athens County Treasurer's Office is the position that I want. It is kind of behind the scenes, as you said. It isn't in the limelight. That's okay. It's the position that helps all the other positions run. And if I am fortunate enough to get elected, and if the people of Athens like the job I'm doing as treasurer, I could see myself staying in the treasurer's office as long as the people of Athens would like me to do so. I'm not going anywhere else.
Okay, thank you. That's the end of the questions that we have from the audience, and I'm going to throw in a question myself. So what I would like to know is how you see the interaction between two important offices at the county level, namely the treasurer's office and the auditor's office. Both of those offices are deeply involved in county finances. How do you see the treasurer interacting with the auditor's office in ways that promote the county's interests?
Good question. So when I was working in the treasurer's office, we were interacting with I was helping them, but I was often the one sent to do this. We were often interacting with the auditor's office staff members. We were running forms down the hall for homestead exemptions for older homeowners. People would come and ask us questions that really were better posed to the auditor's office, and I would escort them down the hall. The people in the auditor's office were really nice, really easy to work with. But I suspect I know part of the reason for that question. I will say that in my work for Senator Brown, as I said, I was traveling around to 25 counties in Appalachian, Ohio. And of those 25 counties, exactly one is blue, and we're in it. So everywhere else I went, I was talking to people of another political persuasion, and sometimes really strongly of another political persuasion. And it was my job to develop a successful working relationship with them. And I did that all over Southeast Ohio, and I actually became friends with some people who have very different political views than mine. And what I learned in that process was, as long as we can avoid the topics that make us want to yell at each other, there's a lot of common ground that can be reached. And so at the time, I focused a lot on infrastructure and veterans. Everybody loves infrastructure and veterans. And so once I led with that, we could talk about anything they wanted to talk about. And so I am confident that I can successfully work with just about anyone.
This is a great question because collaboration amongst the county departments has got to be one of the most important subjects, period. Because if they're not working together, they're working against each other. And if we're working against each other, what are we doing? In my years of experience as auditor and as council person, I've been nonpartisan the entire time. And when I say that, I don't mean like it symbolically. I mean literally. They're nonpartisan positions. So to be frank, leave the politics at the door. We have, as I mentioned earlier, a community with dwindling federal and state funds, with dwindling population, deindustrialization, drug pharma companies that have pushed an addiction, multiple addictions through our communities right there in Nelsonville. Check the politics at the door. There's too much work to be done, and there's not enough of us to do it. And so as treasurer, frankly, the party affiliation is not even going to come up in my mind. There's a job to be done. There's departments to work with. If Auditor Davidson has an objection or something that she wants to bring up, I'm just down the hallway. As county treasurer, I work with her office monthly, weekly, often right now as auditor, as city auditor, and my focus will be, what is the job actually getting done and what are the results? I don't want to hear about the politics. I don't want to hear about the party and this and that. As treasurer, I want the job done, and I want people to feel respected when they're in there to pay.
Okay, thank you both. Thanks to the audience for good questions. And now it's time for closing statements. And since Beth, you led on the opening statements, we'll have Taylor lead on the closing statements. And Taylor, you're on.
Absolutely. Well, I better speak a little quicker this time than my opening statement. Thank you so much to the League for this wonderful event. Thank you so much for everyone coming out. I need to thank the sun today for the sunburn I got while knocking doors over the weekend and yesterday. It was beautiful weather. I want to reiterate a couple points here. I believe the land bank gives this county hope. There are great examples across the country and state to learn from and to improve it on and to help Athens County with. I want your process for paying your taxes to be easy, efficient, effective. And frankly, the most important point I think I want to make here is that this is a party primary for a position that most folks are not really focused on. And I think it's perfectly okay. I heard this at the door a lot. They don't really know what the treasurer does. I think that's okay. I want to have that conversation, but because it's a party primary, we have a lot of things that we agree on, the councilwoman and I. But there is one true distinguishment between the two of us, and I believe that's our experience and that's our education. My experience of years in my second term, years in the city auditor's office, the results I've delivered with high reserves, good investments, safe money, online payments, and frankly, holding people to account. Showing that just because I'm polite, don't mistake my politeness for weakness. Because I've been willing to say when something's wrong, I'm gonna say so, and I'm gonna hold folks to account. That's something that's going to follow me long into my life, fortunately because of my wonderful mother here in the front. And if I fail, I'm sure my boyfriend's going to make sure I know that too, who's also here with me. My experience, years in City Hall, and my education in public administration, I really do believe make me ready for this job in a way that many folks who have run for this office were not ready for on their first day, but did a great job because they're willing to learn. I'm ready on day one. There won't be a learning curve. And frankly, the results of my service show that we'll do a great job if the voters give me the chance. Thank you.
Well, I would also like to thank each of you for coming out tonight, and even more for staying. We appreciate that. And I would like to thank the League for holding this event, and for everybody who asked those good questions. They really were, all of them were good tonight. And that doesn't always happen, so thank you. I would like to reiterate some of the points that I made. Some of my goals for this position, for the treasurer's position, are to modernize the way we pay property taxes and make it more convenient to do so, with the goal being to help more people each year pay their taxes on time and avoid getting penalties for being delinquent in their taxes. I want to keep the Athens County Land Bank going strong. I think it's a real force for good in our county, and I am really excited to be the first woman on the board of the Land Bank, if given the opportunity. I am also excited, as I said, to work with the county's $30 million investment portfolio. I've been studying those financial instruments that we use, trying to see the pros and cons of different ones. I think I could do a lot of good with the investments of the county, and I'm excited. As I said, I've been studying Ohio law as it pertains to the treasurer's office. I have been absolutely peppering the current treasurer with questions, and he's been very nice about answering them. I've talked to some other county treasurers in other counties. I'm really working hard to learn this position, in the hopes that I will earn your votes and get to serve as your county treasurer. And if so, I promise I will be ready on day one. And I would like to say that I am very happy that this week I got 2 endorsements, even though it's very rare to get an endorsement in a primary. The Matriarchs organization that helps women run for office in Ohio has endorsed me, and I'm very honored to have the endorsement of our current Athens County Treasurer, Rick Wasserman.
Thank you both. And I would like to also extend thanks to the City of Athens Government Channel staff, including Ryan Schwarzkopf, for recording this event. This recording will be viewable on the City of Athens YouTube channel and its Facebook page. It will also be visible on the League of Women Voters of Athens County Facebook page. Finally, I want to thank the people of Athens County for submitting thoughtful questions and for joining us to learn more about these candidates. We urge all of you to make a voting plan now. Early in-person voting begins tomorrow, and Election Day is March 19th. Thank you all, and have a good night.